All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Teaching Kitchen at New York-Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital. My name is Chef Emily Berner, and today we're going to be making Korean one-pot dishes. I'm so grateful to all of you for tuning in, for watching our programs, for asking your fantastic questions and participating. So I hope this will be an interesting class for you. Certainly was a lot of fun for me to design and think about. Just a few Zoom ground rules and reminders. If you're new to our kitchen, please keep yourself on mute throughout the duration of our program. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat box, and our wonderful volunteer, Alita, is going to be reading me your questions throughout the presentation. So anyone have any questions about that, you can put it in the chat box, and we can try to make sure that everybody's questions get answered. If we don't have time for whatever reason to answer your question this evening, you can always email me, and I'm happy to answer you after the program as well. So any of those is absolutely fine. Our recipes were sent to you ahead of time in PDF form. They look like this today. So you can see you've got the flag on there. And if you didn't receive these recipes, again, for whatever reason, I'm going to be sending out the recipes at the end of the program, in addition to a feedback survey, etc. So you will have all that information so you can bring these recipes into your home and make them yourself. So with that, let's begin. We're going to start by making a recipe called Bibimbap, which is not only really fun to say, but also a lot of fun to cook. So recorded originally as, and I'm not going to say this correctly, Gochujang. That was the original name for Bibimbap. So the records identify this dish as early as the 18th century, so it is an ancient dish. And the word is kind of broken up into three parts. The gol, in the G-O-L in the beginning, means to mix. The dong means to keep cool. And then gochujang together means a dish that mixes together various relishes with already cooked rice. So that's how the word and the dish are connected. It was changed to bibimbap in the 19th century. Not too sure exactly when that happened. There are a few differing claims to the origins of bibimbap. So some say it was a royal food, royal court food, so something that the royals would enjoy, the king's lunch, for example. I kind of like that explanation. Others say it was a ceremonial food, so something that was arranged at ancestral rites and very ceremonial and various ceremonies. And then some books actually describe it as farmer's food, which I also love because it's a really hearty dish. It has kind of everything complete in one dish. So we're going to be making this. And I actually uncovered a poem from the 17th century, and it's a translated poem, so it's not translated very well, but it's about bibimbap. So this is something that's been in the culture for a very long time, and the poem is short, so I'll read it quickly. No matter how much I eat bibimbap, I am satisfied. To fill one's insides, it is the best. If I swallow it through my throat, it will go to my stomach. Beating on my stomach, I enjoy a tranquil lifetime. So hopefully bibimbap brings us tranquility. As I get old, I try to take lightly of the institution. Somehow one would say that it is equal to the vast sea of the confused world. Who compares it with the nation's state of affairs in chaos? So I guess this was written during a particularly chaotic time. And then the last sentence, rice and vegetables are perfect for purification. I just think it's kind of fun to dig into these food history tidbits. So I hope you enjoyed that. All right, so on to our cooking. In order to make our bibimbap, we have all of our ingredients here. So you can use leftover rice for this recipe, which is one of the reasons it's really easy to pull together quickly. So I have some leftover short grain brown rice, which is this one. I particularly like short grain rice, and that's really a staple of Korean cuisine because of how wonderfully sticky it gets. So we're using the short grain brown rice, and then that's going to be the base of our bowl, and then we're going to add tons of vegetables on top. So today we've got carrots, we have some beautiful little shiitake mushrooms, some cabbage as well, and we're going to top it off with some sprouts and a fried egg for protein. So that's going to be our bibimbap dish. Oh, and sesame seeds. Not to mention, there's actually a really important sauce that goes on top of this. The sauce is really what makes the whole dish bibimbap and not just kind of another stir fry. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that sauce because it features a very important ingredient in Korean cuisine, which is this particular kind of chili called Gochujang. And I apologize because I do have a light in the kitchen here that is flashing. So it looks like it's not disturbing my video too much. But if it does bother anybody, just put that in the chat and I can try to turn those lights off and we'll keep going as is. So always a surprise whenever you're working in a kitchen, right? So before we dive into the recipe and cooking, Alita, do we have any questions about anything so far?
So no questions, but it seems that the light is fine for Rose.
Great. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Yes, it is like having a little disco party in the back of the kitchen. It's entertaining. All right. Any questions about the dishes before we start cooking?
So yeah, there was one question about how many people does this feed? It says serve.
Oh, good question. Yeah, so I think the recipe, I think I wrote it on your packets. It should say serves 4. So this dish will make, about 3 to 4 servings. But you can make more or less, add more vegetables if you've got more people, add more rice, make some extra eggs, or if you have fewer, which is definitely the case in my household lately, you can just decrease the recipe and you don't have to make as much as it calls for. All right. All right. So I'm going to start with my carrots. So I've washed these carrots ahead of time, and I'm just going to take off the tops and the bottoms and pop that into our compost. And it's a little bit easier when you're working with such a long carrot. Instead of trying to cut the whole thing in half in one go, cut them in half first, make them a little bit smaller, then make a tunnel with your hands, and then you can cut them in half a little more easily than if you were trying to cut it all in half, all in one kind of length. All right, so that's just going to make it a little bit easier for you. So I'm going to start by heating up my wok, and we're going to start by sauteing the carrots. Oh, I forgot to introduce the other dish we're making today, which is an egg drop soup. So that is, again, I'm not going to pronounce any of these correctly, so perhaps I'm not going to try. But essentially, it's a Korean version of egg drop soup. So that's the other recipe we're making as well. So everything here is on a flat surface, right? So the carrot doesn't roll around. And you can kind of bunch them up and slice them thinly into half moons, making sure that you, of course, tuck the fingers of your holding hands as you go. And we always say, don't be a hero. It gets a little close to the bottom there where you're not comfortable slicing. Just take your time. All right? Better to get the carrots in there and not your fingertips. Okay. So after you've done that, we're going to add a little bit of avocado oil to saute these a bit in our wok. You can use, if you don't have a wok, you can certainly use a skillet if that's what you have. Ooh, this carrot has a little funky spot, so I'm going to get rid of that. I like the wok. It's sort of the more traditional way to cook these veggies, but anything where you could get some good heat going will work out just fine. The avocado oil is not traditional. That's sort of my spin on it. But any kind of vegetable oil will do that does well at high heat, high temperatures. That's why I'm using the avocado oil. So any questions? I think I see some popping up there.
Yes, Emily, there was a question about where do you purchase the gochujang?
Oh, great question. Okay. So I got this one at Whole Foods, but you can also find it on Amazon. So this is the kind that we're using today. So this particular item is basically Korean chili paste. So it's probably the most famous Korean condiment. It goes in side dishes, it goes in soups and stews and marinades, etc. So it's made from Korean chili powder, which is gochugaru, different from the jang at the end. Gochugaru, which is the chili powder itself, and then there's this chili paste that's made from it. The chili paste is chili powder, usually mixed with some rice and mixed with fermented soybeans of some kind and salt. It's very spicy and slightly sweet. So I think it's interesting. It differs from other types of heat that I am used to cooking with. It's like, it has like a little bit of a sweet backdrop, kind of interesting. So it's fun to play around with. And if you can't find this, you can also, I think I included in your packets, a little version of like how to make your own. Yeah, okay. Or substitute 2 teaspoons of chili powder mixed with 1 tablespoon of miso paste, 1 teaspoon of water, and 1 teaspoon of honey. That's assuming you have miso paste, which may also be hard to find. But once you have miso paste, you can keep it in your refrigerator forever because it's a fermented product that's basically salt. So it keeps for a really long time. So I recommend getting some miso paste because it adds a lot of umami and depth to your dishes, and it's used in Asian cuisine around the world. So it's a good staple to have. Any other questions, Alita?
Well, no questions, but Rose stated that you could also purchase it at Whole Foods. And Gail mentioned that is at the Korean Asian store. I know at H Mart up in Central.
Yeah, that's right. H Mart. I always forget about that one because I don't go there myself, but I've heard it's great. I wonder if Apple Farm in Cortland would have it too. Not too sure about that. All right. So we just got a little heat on these carrots. We're going to do our mushrooms next, our shiitake mushrooms. So within each step, you're going to take out the items. So we don't do the carrots with the mushrooms. We keep them separate, right? Because we don't want them to overcook. So everything should stay nice and crunchy. So here's my mushroom, and I have some in the pan already. I cut off the bottom, right? And I actually threw these little stems in with the broth for the egg drop soup because I thought, why not? You know, they're good flavor. Didn't want to waste them. So they went in the pot with the dried shiitake mushrooms for the broth. So if you make these dishes together, save your stems and use it for the soup stock. So same thing here with your mushrooms, curl your fingers and just do a nice slice, rolling through the mushroom. Now this motion is extremely awkward if you're not used to it, right? Kind of pushing through, pulling back, pushing through, pulling back, right? So it takes time to get used to this, but over time you will glide like a wheel of a locomotive down a smooth track. I guess I'm feeling poetic today. All right, in it goes. That's what cooking does to you, right? Brings out your creativity. So I'm just gonna move these around, getting some heat on them, making them cook through a little bit. I didn't add any more oil to the pan because there was actually a little bit left in there from the carrots. You know what, I can actually save a little bit of this carrot oil and pop that back in there so we don't have to keep adding too much. All right, and just again, getting some color on these, cooking these shiitake mushrooms, and then we'll pop them into the bowl with the carrots. Our third veggie today is going to be our cabbage. So I had a little bit of leftover cabbage from last week. We did a class on traditional foods of Ireland, and what do you know, cabbage was on the menu. So we had a little bit of extra and I didn't want to waste it, so I saved it for this week. But just so you're aware of how to cut and work with a cabbage, imagine that this is a whole cabbage. You would start by taking the head, cutting it in half. So then you have your flat surface. Then you cut it into quarters, right? Then you've got 4 pieces. This is the quarter. And then there's a core here that's kind of tough and takes a little bit longer to cook than the leaves. So putting it on a flat surface, going in a little bit at an angle to kind of wedge that piece out. And that's how we got rid of our cabbage core. Here you want to stabilize the cabbage with your hand, and then you're just going to do a nice fine shred. Okay, nice and easy. Any questions, Alita? Everybody's doing all right?
Yeah, no questions so far, Chef Emily.
Okay, fantastic. So has anybody had bibimbap before? Anybody that wants to share their experience of bibimbap in the chat box? If they've tried it, I'm really excited because it's one of my favorite things to order at a Korean restaurant. So I was really excited to learn it myself. All right. So we've got the mushrooms in there. No one's tried bibimbap. Well, that's exciting. I'm excited to introduce you to a new food. Let's do our cabbage next. Same thing here, a little oil, a little salt. So you can see we're just kind of staggering, right? Staggering the cooking. Okay. And of course, we are using brown rice, but you could also use sushi rice, which is traditional short grain white rice, if you wanted to make it in the more traditional fashion. Of course, we try to make things a little bit healthier here in the teaching kitchen. So we're using brown rice because 1 cup of brown rice contains 3.5 grams of fiber. So it's a good source of fiber, 5 grams of protein. It also contains some B vitamins, minerals, and iron, zinc, and selenium. So there's a lot of good stuff in brown rice that is lost in the processing of making it white rice. So that's one of the reasons we are enjoying it today. All right. Move this around a little bit until it gets nice and soft. Okay, so that was the thing I wanted to mention on brown rice. Oh, and of course, the fiber. The importance of fiber in the brown rice really helps to stabilize your blood sugar. So not only is it good for your belly and good for the gut and all the rest, but it's really important for blood sugar balance that you get a good amount of fiber in every meal. And of course, we're getting some with these beautiful veggies, but it's a good way to add more. All right, so this recipe calls for bean sprouts, but I couldn't find any today. So we're gonna be using alfalfa sprouts. The bean sprouts are basically either to be sauteed and thrown in, or you can, if they're already, I know you can often find them canned, you can just drain them and throw them on top as well. So either one will work. So again, I'm just softening up this cabbage, a little bit of oil and salt. Right, the seasoning on the vegetables is minimal because we're going to top this with that sauce. Any questions?
No question, Chef Emily, but Rose did mention that she couldn't find them either.
Couldn't find the bean sprouts. There must be a bean sprout shortage. Oh no! All right, well, I'm using alfalfa sprouts today. Sprouts are not necessary. In fact, none of these vegetables are, well, they're necessary, just not these specific ones. You can put different vegetables depending on what's available. So if you have daikon radish, use that. If you've got red peppers, throw those in. If you've got, beets, that could be interesting too. So play around with whatever vegetables you have kind of available to you, right? You have to make these things work. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this sauce, which is really, really simple and very flavorful. Just gonna draw this forward. So on this tray, I have a little bit of coconut sugar. You could use regular cane sugar if you don't wanna buy coconut sugar, mixed with some water. So I have the coconut sugar and water mixture, and I'm just gonna put that in. We're gonna add some toasted sesame oil. Now, I always make a point to mention toasted sesame oil is different from regular sesame oil. Do not make that mistake. Toasted sesame oil has a really wonderful nutty toasted aroma. So if you use regular sesame oil, you're gonna miss out on a ton of flavor. So get the toasted sesame oil and put it on everything because it's so good. So in goes our Korean chili paste, about 2 tablespoons. And again, you can adjust this, put more or less, depending on, your spice preference. You can really adjust it. We're gonna add a little bit of apple cider vinegar, about a teaspoon or so. Or if you have rice wine vinegar, that will be fine too. Just something with a nice acidic punch to it. Our toasted sesame seeds. If you can't find toasted sesame seeds, you can always toast them yourself. Just pop them onto a small pan and toast them up that way. And then finally, we have a garlic clove going in there. So I, of course, am working from our fresh garlic, but if you had some minced garlic in your fridge and that was super easy for you, and you're doing this as a lazy weeknight dinner, feel free to use your already minced garlic. So either one is fine. Okay. So I'm gonna just chop off the little tail here. And this garlic has a germ sprouting out, right? And it is absolutely safe to consume that. Some people find that it tastes a bit bitter. So it's really up to you whether or not you want to have the garlic, the germ of the garlic in your food. Some people find that it actually upsets their stomach to eat the germ. So if you think, oh, I like garlic, but it kind of upsets my stomach, maybe it's the germ that's causing the trouble. So, of course, speak to your doctor before making any changes. But yeah, I would recommend trying that out. All right, so we'll add our minced garlic. Again, this is going to add a little heat and flavor. And that's it. So this sauce is done. The sauce, of course, can be made ahead of time and, stored and added to salads and added to really any kind of dish you want. Throw it on your eggs in the morning. If you wanted to do it that way, that would be fine too. All right, and then all of this is served with a fried egg on top. So I've never fried an egg in a wok. I imagine that it's going to be very hard to flip, but because this is a one-pot dish, I'm going to use the wok so that we don't dirty another pan. All right, we'll add a little oil to this and slide our egg in. I'm committed to the one pot philosophy here. Okay. So we can begin plating this. In the meantime, we have our already cooked rice, right? Leftover brown rice. This is our short grain brown rice on according to the package directions. So that's 1 cup of brown rice with 1 3/4 of a cup of water. Then throw it right on the stove there. You can add a little pinch of salt if you like. And then I'm going to use this plate. It's a little wider so you guys can see how this is built. And then you just let it come to a boil, turn it down, and simmer. Be careful with your rice, though. If you let it come to a boil while you're walking away, sometimes it will boil over, and that can make a bit of a mess. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to add our rice to the bottom. And then we're going to add some of our veggies on top. So we've got our beautiful cabbage. I love cabbage. Such an underrated vegetable, in my opinion. Keeps in your refrigerator for such a long time. I've even, once upon a time, when we, went on vacation and stuff, leaving cabbage in the refrigerator for a week or two and come back and it would still be fine. So cabbage is great for that reason. All right, we've got our veggies, our mushroom and some carrot mix. We can add some sprouts here. All right, and we'll just pop our eggs on top. So any questions about this recipe?
Yes, Chef. Valerie wants to know, are there different degrees of spiciness in the gochujang?
So Val, that's a really great question. And I think there probably are. I only have ever worked with this particular one because it's not too hot, but I imagine that it's like curry, right? Like depending on the region, it's probably a little bit different. So you might have, this chili paste from one part of Korea and another part of Korea. It's probably one of those things where even in every household, everyone makes it a little differently. So my guess would be, yes, you could probably find a mild one.
And
right.
Pat and Beverly both state that you can find bean sprouts at the Apple Farm on Welcher Avenue in Peekskill.
All right, fantastic. I love this community. You guys are so helpful to each other. Okay, so there it is, our one pot wonder, our bibimbap. So you've got the runny egg yolk that's going to also help to create a sauce with all the veggies, right? The sauce that we made on top, the rice on the bottom, and then all that other goodness all around. So we'll set this to the side as we prepare our next dish. Questions about that before I jump over?
No questions, Chef Emily.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm gonna set this wok off to the side and let it cool down before putting it, cleaning it up. It is the cast iron wok, so I don't use soap on it. I just scrub it really well and then dry it very well as well, so it doesn't get rusty. Okay, so here I went ahead and made our broth or our stock. So we're gonna start making the egg drop soup. So for this, you have a recipe for the stock in your packets as well. And I made it using dried shiitake mushrooms today. That's just what I was inspired by. So you can use the dried anchovies if you're feeling particularly brave and want that flavor, or you can also use bonito flakes, which are basically very, very thinly shaved dried tuna. If you have a cat, he knows what bonito flakes are because cats go crazy for that stuff. I have a cat and he just, every time we use bonito flakes on our okonomiyaki, which is our Japanese pancake dish, he just appears out of nowhere. It's really funny. All right, so in goes the strained broth. So you can use it, either the mushrooms, either the bonito flakes, either the anchovies, and you're gonna just bring this up to boil. It has to boil first. We're gonna add a little splash of soy sauce to the broth and a little pinch of salt. Okay, and you just let that come up to a boil first. Then we're gonna beat our eggs and kind of stream them in and move it at the same time. So this is where it becomes a little bit of an art form. We're just gonna crack. So I always crack on the counter and pop in, right? So you don't crack on the side of something because the eggshell could slip in. That could make it difficult to retrieve. 1, 2, we're gonna do 4. This is very, very simple. Again, we're just putting eggs in it, but if you had, leftover veggies you wanted to throw into, like anything from the bibimbap, you can serve this in the soup as well if you wanted to just add more vegetables to your diet. So we'll scramble these up. And I'm doing this in a little measuring cup just because I find it's a little bit easier to pour it into the hot broth. But if you, don't have one of these liquid measuring cups, you can use a teacup or, mug or something you've got. It's easy. So you just want to kind of unravel these protein strands. And eggs, of course, very high in protein. We know that, right? There's about 6 or 7 grams per egg. There is controversy related to eggs. The recent studies showing that egg consumption has actually very little influence on blood cholesterol levels. So that might be something if you've been restricting your eggs, speak to your cardiologist, because recent studies say eggs aren't the problem. So your cardiologist might be up on that and you can make some changes and include more eggs in your diet, which could be nice. All right, and so that comes to a boil. Already added that in. We're gonna chop up 1 lone scallion, doing nice little rounds here. You could also, if you wanted to get fancy, you could slice on a bias, right? So I'll just show you how to do that. So instead of going up and down this way, you kind of turn your knife to between, let's say that's like 10 to 4, and slice across to get these pretty long bias cuts, if you want to play around with that. It's nice to do different, cuts. Makes it feel like you're out at a restaurant or something. And then many of you already know this trick, but if you pop your scallions in some water, here are scallions from last week. You can see how much they grow in just a week. So this is your indoor winter gardening class. Pop those in there. All right. Any questions? How's everybody doing?
So Chef Emily, no questions, but can I add something to the gochujang spiciness?
Yes, of course. Please.
It does come in several levels of spiciness, and from mild hot to extremely hot. So when people,
there you go.
They really need to look at the label just to make sure if, they can tolerate that extreme hot spiciness.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's just like a curry where you might want to bump up the heat or decrease the heat depending on what you like. I know that this one actually does not, it doesn't say, but it tastes okay to me. So I'm going to go with mild. Yeah, thank you so much, Alita. That's great information. All right, so this came up to a boil. Now I'm turning it down to simmer. And my stock is brown because of the mushroom. So that is completely normal. And don't be alarmed by that. But if you do a different kind of stock, if you did an anchovy based or bonito flake based, it'll be a different color. So just want you to be aware of that. So you want to have this at a simmer. And you don't want it to be you don't want it to be boiling too much because then it'll be too agitated, and it'll be difficult to work with, but you also don't want it to be too low. So a nice simmer is kind of like when you see bubbles coming up to the surface, but it's not that rolling boil. So you kind of want to get it just at that right temperature. And I think, I'm looking at the recipe, I think I included some instructions here. Yeah, so reducing the heat to medium, drizzling in the beaten egg, and then letting it sit for a moment when they make contact to kind of stick together, and then stirring to gently break up. So it's kind of like a two-step process here. So in we go, and kind of let that coagulate. And immediately it looks like scrambled eggs in here, right? The eggs coagulate at this temperature. So I have kind of like scrambled eggs, kind of like this raft in the, you know what, maybe I can even show you. It's gonna be hard to tilt, but kind of this raft in the pot, right? And now it's coagulated. We can turn this off, just kind of give it a good whisk and mix it all together. That's it. This is really simple. It's a nice way to include eggs that's not, you know, kind of what we're all used to, which is omelets for dinner and things like that. So there you go. Nice and easy. We'll pop our scallions. We'll add a little bit of toasted sesame oil, again, bumping up the flavor here. And you're done. So this one was really easy, right? This is beginner level. You can all do this. Does anyone think they're going to try these recipes at home? Anyone want to share in the chat box what they're interested to try on their own? All right, and I'm just going to put this in a bowl so you guys can have a closer look too. It smells really good. So here's our egg drop soup. Nice and warm for these, hopefully these final days of winter. I don't know about you guys, but I am ready for spring. So, all right, I think I see a comment, Alita, there, if you'd like to share it.
Yes, Chef. So Barbara states that she's been putting the onions in the water and that it works great, you know, the scallions.
Yeah, oh good.
And a couple of people are talking about the fact that they're going to try both of these recipes. Someone is going to try to add shrimp.
Yeah, that's a great idea. To your bibimbap or to your egg drop? Probably this one.
I don't know. That was less. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, Les, we have a follow-up question for you. Great.
And it says, Rose must be cooking along with you because she says she just did the first recipe and it came out well.
Oh, fantastic, Rose. Bravo. Thank you so much. Thanks for trying it. I hope you like it. All right, great.
They're going to add protein to the soup. Maybe.
Yeah, and the egg is already, keep in mind, the egg is already protein, right? So if you want to add something to the soup, go for a vegetable. Go for that extra cabbage or, you know, something. You can cook some veggies alongside. Some spinach would be really nice. Kind of wilt up some spinach in a pan and throw that in, right? So try for that. Great.
And Barbara says Barbara said she didn't get the recipe, but as you mentioned at the beginning.
Yes, we will send. Great.
There was sense and you'll be able to. So
Thanks, Alita.
Eileen also wants to know, where was the kelp purchased?
Oh, great question, Eileen. So I had kelp that I had purchased at Whole Foods a while ago, and it keeps for a really long time. So that's the one that I used. But similarly, you could find it probably at H Mart, definitely at Whole Foods. And if you don't have kelp, you can try to make this, just with dried shiitake mushrooms, like just make a broth with that and mix in the egg. The kelp does add, an element of flavor. So it's worth seeking out, if only for its nutritive properties. Kelp is really high in all kinds of wonderful minerals. So it's a good thing to learn how to use. We don't really use a lot of seaweeds in our cooking. It's not really a part of our Western palate, and it's very nutritive, so it's worth seeking out. Great. And I'm just going to roll you through some Korean kitchen staples. So you have this list in your packets as well. If you really want to get into Korean cooking, it's a beautiful culture. It's a beautiful cuisine to learn about and experience, dig into, especially if you like spicy food. There's a whole world of kimchis out there. If you don't know what kimchi is, it's a fermented Korean condiment that features cabbage, and it's usually very spicy. But there are, of course, some milder ones. So you can really learn a lot about Korean cuisine. This is a long list, so I'm not going to go through everything, but the ones that we use today were sesame seeds, sesame oil, a little bit of sugar, I guess, in the salt. Sugar is often used as a spice, just like we would use salt. Sugar is used in that way, so kind of sprinkled in dishes, but not the main event. Soy sauce, we use soy sauce as well. There's many different varieties of soy sauce, some saltier than others. So we used a low sodium variety. Of course, we're trying to make things a little bit healthier here, lower in salt. So if you can use whatever kind you prefer, but if you're worried about salt intake, you could find a low sodium variety. The Korean chili paste, our star of the show. We talked a little bit about that. Short grain rice, typically, this is very typical Korean style rice, is the short grain, very similar to Japanese sushi rice. And they can really be used interchangeably. So either one would be fine in this dish. We used cabbage, we used garlic, we used scallions, we used kombu. So we really covered a range of Korean kitchen staples today. So I hope you had fun, learned something new. I hope you can bring these dishes into your kitchen. And we're actually done early, which is very rare for us. So we have about 5 minutes or so if anybody has questions or just anything that they want to talk about. You can even unmute yourself and share a dish that you cooked that you were proud of recently, or something that you're excited to cook, or can be related to anything you want. Open forum.
So Chef Emily, I just wanted to finish some of the other comments. So Les said that he would put
absolutely
shrimp in both recipes. And also there
Okay.
is an additional Apple store, which was actually there before the one in Peekskill. So there's one in the Croton Commons by the post office in Croton on Hudson.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay.
Apple store as well. So
yeah. Okay. And when we say Apple store, we're not referring to the computer tech store. We're referring to the local farm store called the Apple store. Yeah. Don't go into Apple looking for, Korean chili paste. They're going to think you've lost your way. Great. Anything else, Alita?
Yes, there's a question that just came in from Rose. If you had soy or tempeh, which would you use?
If I had tempeh, you mean, okay. So if you wanted to make a vegetarian version of the bibimbap without the egg on top, the fried egg is, of course, the most traditional way to do this dish. But if you wanted to add some protein that is plant-based, you could add tempeh or tofu. Those are good options. You would cook those ahead of time, however you enjoy cooking them. Often I will marinate tempeh or tofu in like a little teriyaki sauce mixed with water just to give it a little more flavor. But either one would be great for this dish. I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for, but they would both be really good. So you could try either.
And that's it. There are no additional questions or comments at
All
this point.
right. Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I guess we'll just close class by thanking you for tuning in. Please come on back for more recipes, more classes coming up. We have two more programs this week. One is for Nutrition Awareness Month, and we're going to have a guest, Christina Conlon, who's our registered dietitian, talking about nutrition awareness, as well as the dietary guidelines, as well as what it means to personalize your plate. So I'm really excited to have her. She's always a wealth of information. And if you have very nutrition-specific focused questions, this is your opportunity to speak to a registered dietitian and ask it in the chat. So feel free to come for that class. Of course, you can find it on our website. And then we also have a class on Friday, and this is for new moms who are looking to support lactation. So this is nutrition for lactation support. It is run by our very own lactation specialist. She is amazing. Her name is Sonia Matheson. So if you know anybody who has just had a child and is trying to figure all these things out, that's a great class for this person. Or even a grandparent that just wants to support their daughter in the birth of their grandchild. So lots of opportunity to learn there about different foods that can support that. And then more classes coming up through March and April. Of course, stay tuned for everything. I do see a hand raised. I think it's Gina Spaff. Gina, if you'd like, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
No, mistake. Sorry.
Mistake. Okay, you were just saying hi.
Okay.
Hand up. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Try some Korean food. It is wonderful, spicy, flavorful, and yet simple and pure. So with that, rice and vegetables are perfect for purification. I hope you will all give this a try. And thank you, Alita, as always, for moderating. You are of a great support to us here at the Teaching Kitchen. So thanks, everyone.
Happy
Thank
St. Patrick's Day.